Hi all and welcome back to the channel. My name is Tom and some of you might know me as Bowl of Salmon on Instagram. First up, I want to wish you a happy and a healthy new year and thank you for checking in here again. 2024 has been an amazing and wild year for me. I got to work with a ton of new brands in a creator role for brands like Resence, Lorca, Man, Glashutte Original. And in my role as commercial photographer, I did some really fun projects shooting for Yema, for Furlan Mari, for Sherpa. And of course, not to forget all the cool shoots I did with Studio Underdog, with the Bezel watch, Time and Tide collaboration at the beginning of the year. And later in the year, of course, there was the 03 series Salmon. I got to travel for doing the things that I love, with trips to London for British Watchmaker Days, my second year attending Watches and Wonders in Geneva. Yeah, I still don't have any invitation for this year. But I also visited New York to visit the Wind Up Watch show, which was really cool to see so many micro brands under one roof. I randomly bumped into Ricky from Scottish Watches at the airport in Geneva, and somehow I ended up on his podcast. I did a cool collaboration with Chrono 24 this year. And to top that off, I got invited to Teddy his yearly roundup video. As a creator, that certainly was one of the highlights for me. Oh, one more thing, I quit my day job too. So what you see here is me doing this full-time, whatever this is. Honestly, I'm still figuring this out myself, but now more than ever, I can just use your support in making this channel grow a little bit, so do hit that subscribe button. Maybe I should do a Q&A video later in the year to discuss all that, but it really feels very much out of my comfort zone to be comfortable on camera and talking to you like this. I'm just trying to make it more fluent. I want to make it as genuine as possible, so I'll do short stints. But I still prefer using all the sweet, sexy B-roll that you're used to seeing from me. I couldn't have gotten here without the support of a brilliant watch fam and the support of all the brands out there. So really, thank you very much. And yeah, we'll see what 2025 brings. So let's get into 2025 with a state of the collection update. I'll approach it a bit different than last year's video. I'm going to focus on my main collection pieces, but I'm going into my 5th year as a watch enthusiast, watch collector, whatever you want to call it. So it's going to be more of an update of the watch journey or a long-term ownership thoughts about certain pieces. We will kick off the video going over the changes in the collection first, any new arrivals or what pieces went out. At the end of the video, I'll do an exercise in what pieces I would choose if I had to consolidate the collection to only 6 pieces. I kind of announced it in last year's State of the Collection video. I fell for the Tag Heuer Carrera Glassbox, and like 1 hour before closing on Christmas Eve, I collected this watch. Tag absolutely nailed it with the design of the glass box, and it was the reversed panda reference that impressed me most. As a photographer, this watch being so photogenic definitely helps, and it just plays with the light beautifully, and I can't stop staring at those shiny indices and silvery subdials. It looks and wears amazing on a NATO strap, and in rotation with my other watches, the 80 hours of Panoreserve is a huge help, because you can pick it up after a long weekend and it's still running. It might sit a little higher on the wrist than the Speedy, but it wears a little smaller and feels less heavy. Despite the term Glassbox implying it would be fragile, it's a watch that I feel confident with on the wrist, whatever activity I'm doing. This has easily been my most worn watch during the first 7 months of the year. Sacrifices had to be made, and I sold the Cartier Santos to fund the Glassbox. I love the Santos, it has that iconic Cartier dial I like so much, and I think it's still the best sporty looking Cartier out there. While it felt and looked good on my wrist, somehow it didn't feel like me, if that makes sense. So I moved it on. I had met with the guys from House of Time on a couple of meetups, and on one of those occasions I got to try some new vintage Rolex. And the 16710, when you try on a watch like that, suddenly you can't understand why brands don't succeed in making watches like this anymore. I mean, why is everything just a bit bulkier and heavier these days? The proportions of this case, the oyster bracelet, it all feels so good. This new vintage 5-digit reference really represents the best of Rolex, blending vintage Rolex design with modern upgrades. The red and black Coke bezel has always been my favorite, perhaps because it's less recognizable than the Pepsi bezel. There are some pretty big enablers in the watch fam community to have this reference, and that didn't help trying to stay away from this. So I might have mentioned to House of Time, if they ever come across one, they could give me a call. Well, they did source one, full box and papers, it's in absolutely great condition, and I really had a good time when I went to pick it up at the watch store together with my son. This guy probably deserves a full-length video, but I've been postponing this because I'm really not that much of an expert in the field of neo-vintage Rolex. I just really like this one. When you have been following me for a while, this won't come as a surprise. Over a year ago I reviewed this watch and I just fell in love with the Panoreserve the minute I held it, and it always stayed near the top of my wish list. To me, Glashutte Original embodies the essence of true watchmaking. It's a brand that remains underappreciated and it represents true craftsmanship and value. It's that final step or final barrier before entering the world of high horology and independent watchmaking. The 40mm case might be a couple of millimeters over the beauty ideal we'd expect from a dress watch, but that is probably why I like it that much. I can switch from my tool watches to this and it still feels like me. I really love wearing it on the original synthetic strap, or I would throw it on a rubber cut to size strap with a deployment clasp from Deluxe. Even if I wear this watch with a jeans shirt or hoodie, it still doesn't feel out of place. I wore this watch while I was in New York, and I never received more compliments about a watch on my wrist. It seems like everybody loves the brand, yet I don't see a lot of them in the wild. I wonder why that is. You would really do me a big favor of hitting that subscribe button so that 100k YouTube button doesn't feel like waiting for a Daytona at retail. A fish can dream, right? So the watch that started it all for me is back in the collection, and this time in a more sporty blue. The Black Bay 58 is hands down the best watch value for money I ever had, and selling it on felt like I had been wrong about it. While I sold my original Black Bay 58 because the gilt accents didn't feel like me, it always lingered. It's also one of the best looking watches out there, and there are plenty of accounts on Instagram reminding me of that. Tudor is definitely a love mark of mine, and for people looking to buy their first luxury watch, Tudor has plenty of one watch collection candidates in their lineup. I'm also a bit in a blue phase at the moment. And speaking of that, the FXD Marine Nationale was my first blue dial. Next to the original Pelagos, it's one of the true tool and dive watches in their catalog. In terms of legibility, the FXD is unrivaled. Last year I also picked up the black FXD as I wanted to decide which one I liked most. There's a full video on the channel if you're curious about that. But the blue FXD didn't get the wrist time it deserves. Strangely enough, it felt to be wearing slightly bigger on my wrist, mainly because of the lug-to-lug. But I also struggled to give it a purpose in my collection. So I still prefer the size of the Pelagos 39 and the strap versatility that watch gives me. And of course there's still the titanium bracelet, so I might look to replace the FXD this year. It is the Pelagos 39 that has grown most on me this year. I've never been completely blown away by it. There has been some love-hate relationship with it. The loom on mine is faulty. I feel the clasp is too long and too sharp, so the bracelet is not perfect. But at this point, with what is available out there, it is my favorite dive watch. So much that it took over from my beloved Seiko SPB 143 for my summer van life trips. I love the lightness, I love the size. While the black may be boring, a black dial is still the most versatile. The sunray finish and the ghost dial make it dynamic enough on the wrist, and it doesn't seek unwanted attention. So as it stands, the FXD Marine Nationale and the Seiko SPB are redundant and I should move them on. I'm really not a watch collector. I want to wear my watches, and at this point I just feel guilty about some of the watches that are left untouched in the watch box. So some pieces weren't here at the time of shooting. My Studio Underdog Salmon dial was on loan with a friend. Now I got to enjoy his Daytona, so all in all a fair trade. The Vertex M100A is usually on the wrist of my dad-in-law, and unfortunately the Oris Hodinkee didn't get a lot of wrist time this year either. 2024 will be known as the year that Mrs. Salmon started wearing a watch. I have tried so many times to get a watch on her wrist, and there's always something she doesn't like. But she keeps coming back to this late 70s vintage Omega Constellation. She likes it a lot because it's small, light, and it's not too blingy. So what if theoretically I had to consolidate the collection? There are two watches I never see myself part with. My most sentimental piece is the Omega Speedmaster Professional, the 1861. I collected this watch for my 14th birthday, and on the day that I went to the AD, my children both gave me €5 of their own piggy bank money to help me pay for it. When I think of a family heirloom for my children, I really hope that this will be that watch. This is the watch I'll have on the wrist whenever there's a special event or family occasion. For everyone wondering if they should get the Hasselite or the Sapphire Crystal, if you're like me worried about scratches, you really can just easily polish out those scratches with some cloth and a poly watch. I did this twice now and the watch still feels like new. I really adore this watch. It's super legible, it's so comfortable on the bracelet, it's a watch I simply can't get enough of. It's my go-to companion for small outdoor trips, but for safety concerns, unfortunately, it is not my top pick for the long summer trips with the van. While the sweet spot for me is more towards 39 or 40mm, the Explorer 2 with its 42mm diameter, the wider bracelet with just enough taper, makes for the fact that it just sits really well on my wrist. It doesn't slide around. And I really love wearing this on a NATO strap too. The dial is so crisp, so legible, and while it's not really banged up or anything, the light and wear and tear is definitely starting to show. Over the now 4 years of ownership, I noticed I went from probably being too aware of what is on my wrist in terms of value to really appreciate and enjoy this one on the wrist. I wouldn't put it in harm's way when there's higher potential in damaging it doing certain chores or activities. I don't baby my watches, but I do take care of them. The Tudor Pelagos 39 is going to be my third pick. I don't like the term beater watch, but this is textbook a go-to daily driver for me. It's an overall great package, great movement, COSC certified with a 70-hour power reserve. It's light and easy wearing on the wrist, just ideal for those hot summer days. I guess to this day, still my least mainstream watch, and for that reason I keep this one as one of my top picks. I don't have a fixed rotation system, but most of my watches are usually at the bank, and this is one of those watches that I always look forward to when it's not been on the wrist for a while. I love the stealthy ninja looks with the super crisp dial and the orange accents. This year the Sherpa lineup expanded with some new case finishing options. We had the TRTS collaboration with the OPS dial in a satin brushed case. Now there is also the Ultra Dive in a satin brushed case, and some new colorful dial options have been added too. The Panoreserve, while fairly new to the collection, would be my fifth pick. It's providing a pop of color, it has a more dressy appeal, and it's a watch I'll be wearing a lot when I go to watch events and meetups, just because I believe these should be more popular within the watch fam. We are down to one more slot, and this is gonna be a tricky one. This alone would be a great three-piece collection. There's a dive watch, there's a chronograph, there's a GMT. The one that started it all, the one I wore the most this year, and well, one iconic Rolex. I surprised a lot of people by not picking the tag in the top 6. I really love the watch. I consider it to be a bit of a crush, but I don't feel any emotion or personal connection with the tag. It's not going anywhere at the moment, but if I have to really cut it down to 6, it wouldn't be in the list. For now, I'll just put the GMT Master in that last slot. It's my sporty yet elegant bracelet watch. In terms of proportions, fit, comfort, it's the best watch I've ever owned. At no point I feel this watch isn't as robust as a modern watch. The only thing I don't like about it is how I don't always have a clear view on the black dial because of whatever coating is or isn't on the sapphire. So for a strange reason I haven't bonded with it yet, and the only thing I can think of is, for me, maybe it's too Rolexy. So with the watch box full, I'll just put the Black Bay 58 on my wrist, realizing real damn well that this could well be the best one watch collection out there, and I realized I should have quit right there and then. So for everyone looking for that one and done, never rule out the Black Bay. You won't believe this, but I don't really have any plans. I don't think of myself as being a watch collector, but I really love the journey in watch collecting with the purpose of wearing them. I think I've passed the phase where I'm looking for that one perfect watch, and I can now learn and to enjoy many different types of watches. I do still have a type. My absolute grail would still be the Vacheron Constantin Everest. Other watches that I have on my Chrono 24 watch list are the Chopard Alpine Eagle in titanium, the IWC Engineer, the Hermes 08, and Omega released the Speedmaster I really like. As we are just starting 2025, I want to take a minute to reflect and to say thanks. Thank you to everybody who has liked, commented, subscribed to the channel, or even just popped in to watch a couple of my videos. That's it for this video. Thank you for watching. If you have any questions, come find me on Instagram or hit the comments down below, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.